Ulrich White is Merewether RSL's newest member. Unfamiliar with the rules, he doggedly checks regulations as he enters the club. OK, no singlets or thongs. It's a weekly 2-kilometre walk for Ulrich to the club to see his mates. Eight-year-old Ulrich is a guide dog, Tony White's companion. Tony has been totally blind for 6 years, and as he is a club member, it is only natural that Ulrich should bend a few rules and join as well.
Definitely dogs are not allowed on the premises, but Ulrich's not really a dog. He's more of a person than a dog.
Tony shares a regular schooner of black and Ulrich a bowl of water. While officials say Ulrich is the club's first four-legged member, Tony, who admits he likes his beer, disagrees.
There have been occasions when I've gone out here on all fours, so...
What, after a few too many grogs?
Well, I think that would be true too.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Newcastle Harbour was a sea of maritime technology today as the port geared up for the annual Australia Day weekend regatta. The New Zealand Navy will contribute to the spectacle with this survey research vessel, the HMNZS Tui. It spent 5 days sailing from its native port of Auckland to be here for the celebrations. Also available for public inspection is the high-tech HMAS Shoalwater, a prototype fiberglass catamaran mine hunter built by Carrington Slipways. But the main attraction will be the Formula One powerboats, the sleek machines that reach speeds in excess of 230 kilometres per hour. Fortunately, they have that lovely soft water to land on if something goes wrong. Or do they?
No soft landing at all at that kind of speed.
What would happen if you actually hit at that kind of speed then?
Oh, well, you just skid along until you slow down to probably 70 or 80 mile an hour, then you might go in the water.
So how dangerous really is it?
It's pretty dangerous. The water's like concrete, anything over about 120 k's.
Not the sort of thing your mild-mannered reporter needed to hear minutes before his first ride. But with the cameras rolling, there was no honourable way out. Out on the water, choppy conditions made it anything but an armchair ride. But that didn't stop our daredevil chauffeur from nudging the 200 k's per hour mark and pulling some double G-force turns that proved, in the right hands, speed thrills. Come finals time on Sunday, these drivers will be racing for $15,000 in prize money. And let me tell you, they'll earn every cent of it. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
The Americans are still reeling after the 49-23 drubbing last test. Newcomers John Soares and Rich Bubak have adjusted to the right-hand drive Australian speedway scene and they've promised revenge. Since the last test, the Americans have had good wins against ACT and Northern New South Wales. The Aussie team will be led by Curry's John Pine and also includes Bob Brewer from Raymond Terrace and Ron Pine from Cessnock. Also on the card, the modified rods in a 20-lap dash to the finish.
On the back. Port Hunter exploded to the sights and sounds of 17 of the fastest speedboats in Australia, powering into the harbour channel from Stockton. The tunnelled-hulled, lightweight craft are thrust along with 300 horsepower motors and hit speeds of more than 200 kilometres an hour. Reigning champion Craig Bailey set a fearless pace into a southerly chop, at times only his boat's propeller holding him to the water. The high-powered projectiles skimmed the course laid out in front of Queen's Wharf. Bob Halliday dogged Bailey from the start, keeping up a full-throttled pursuit for the more than 40-lap race. Then suddenly, floating debris holed Bailey's brand new boat and Halliday took the lead. Then, in the 41st gruelling lap, David Jennings' boat flipped backwards at 190 kilometres an hour. The wreck came up without its driver. Rescuers were quick to the scene. Jennings escaped serious injury but was taken to hospital for a checkup. The race wasn't restarted and Bob Halliday was declared the winner. A four-wheel drive day trip into the dunes off Stockton Beach has ended in tragedy after a vehicle rolled and crushed one of its occupants. A paramedic crew from Newcastle was rushed to the scene but could do nothing.
The showdown was originally scheduled for Saturday night, but torrential rain forced the Aussies to cool their heels for an extra 24 hours. The wait obviously did them no harm, and they came out blazing. The Americans never stopped trying, but the locals used teamwork to perfection and eventually ran out comfortable winners, 47 points to 25. In other races, newly crowned state champion Steve Robinson took out the Teteran Modified Rod Classic from Sydney's Steve Fortune, with Beresfield's Graham Gillespie a respectable fourth.
The steep, shifting dunes north of the Cygna wreck are a playground for four-wheel drive and dune buggy enthusiasts. A group of drivers was negotiating a particularly steep dune at about 10:30 this morning when a Toyota Hilux utility with two men on board climbed the face and suddenly somersaulted off the crest. The vehicle was not equipped with a roll bar and the roof caved in, trapping the men. Friends rushed to free the occupants. The driver died before paramedics arrived from Newcastle. The passenger escaped serious injury. Port Stephens Ordnance officers patrol the area and warn of its dangers.
Well, because of the glare on the sand, it's very difficult to see the contours of the sand, and if you're inexperienced, it's very dangerous. You can flip your vehicle without any problems at all.
The statewide operation aims to get motorists home in one piece after the Christmas school holidays. But police are battling against an increase of more than 20% in fatal accidents since the beginning of the new year.
We can only hope that people just fulfil their obligation as drivers and just do the right thing.
This weekend they were targeting drink drivers, motorists exceeding the speed limit and those not wearing seatbelts. A 21-year-old was booked for speeding on the Pacific Highway at 12 Mile Creek north of Raymond Terrace at 174 kilometres an hour in a 100 zone. He was one of 349 fined in the Maitland area and 619 in the Newcastle district. Included in these figures were the drivers of two heavy vehicles and two tourist coaches. Newcastle Police charged 48 people with drink driving. 13 were found to be over the limit by Maitland Police. But a major concern throughout the Hunter was the dramatic increase in seatbelt offences, despite the fact that Newcastle and Singleton hold Golden Seatbelt Awards. Maitland Police report nearly 80 bookings compared with only 17 this time last year, while Newcastle Police booked 50 people, more than double last year. Many involved children who are not restrained.
But it is difficult, and a lot of people, they're out driving. The kids do become uncontrollable at times. It's just as easy to pull the side of the road and sort the kids out on the side of the road. It's pretty sad when it's got to be one of us to sort mum or dad out, because we're going to buck past the job anyway. After dad walks away with his $81 infringement, he's still got to sort his kids out.
Shopping centres throughout the area were open, but reported slow trading. Most people opted to use what was a bonus Monday off for a trip to the beach.
Yeah, it gives us a chance to relax and have a family day together.
As long as it's a good day, I'm happy.
Others sought the leafy surrounds and native Australians at Blackbutt Reserve.
I've just had the family out looking at the animals and having a bit of a picnic in the park.
What was your favourite part of the day?
Seeing the koalas and going for a walk.
Gulf War protesters in Civic Park renewed their vigil for peace, trying to jog the conscience of a nation at war. While they weren't overwhelmed with support, they were not alone with their wish for a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
This is a true Australian here demonstration on the beach of our way of life. This is what we want to preserve. We don't want war.
Janice Lucas is 40. She hasn't answered the call of a school bell in 25 years. But come tomorrow, she'll be wearing a school uniform and falling in with Year 11 Jesmond High students beginning their run to the HSC.
I've always thought about it, and I've got the opportunity to do it now, and that's what I'm going to do.
After raising a family, Janice now has her heart set on a career in nursing. Along with 7 other mature-age students, she'll attend regular classes and was given a tour of the school by Principal John McConnell. She's determined to see her studies through and fit in with her new classmates.
It'll probably take a while to cope, with the younger students, but I think I'll be okay.
The principal has faith in the project.
All they've got to do is work hard, and with our support and our encouragement and the fact that they're working with other students will mean that they should be able to achieve what they need for their career aspirations.
Teachers made the most of today, preparing for the year ahead. Staff shortages affecting other areas of the state are not apparent here. The head office of the Education Department in Newcastle says that temporary gaps caused by teacher promotions and transfers will be filled before school commences tomorrow.
It was back to work today for Eric Arnold, the man recognised by the Australian Coaches Association as the best in New South Wales.
Well, you're always looking to your peers to make sure that things happen for you, and they did.
Yeah, what's the secret to your success? Are you allowed to share that?
Oh, well, a good team. It's a really great team, and we've had a great year. Last year we were the premiership team in New South Wales.
Few would argue with his selection, least of all star pupil Donna Proctor. She went from the disappointment of initially missing selection in the Australian team to a 5th place in the world titles, and now the recognition as the state's best female swimmer.
I was really happy with my swim at Worlds in the 800 freestyle, and then getting being recognised by the New South Wales coaches as swimmer of the year was really good.
And completing the trifecta is the BHP Hunter swim team, which last weekend wrapped up the state club premiership and gave Newcastle a unique piece of poolside history.
The first day in class was an exciting experience for the kindergarten children at New Lambton Heights Infant School. Though Mrs Chadwick made up part of the welcoming committee, that moment of parting from mum still proved painful for some of the little ones. And painful for Mrs Chadwick was the admission that some Hunter schools are still without teachers.
We have a handful of vacancies in the Hunter, and I'm very sorry about that, and we're doing our best to make sure that those vacancies are filled as soon as possible. But compared to years gone by, the situation is calm. We do not have disruption here.
Shortfalls are mainly in maths, science and special education, though Mrs Chadwick said there are still a couple of vacancies in primary schools.
It can be a problem, particularly with a young person starting school and just settling in. But short of running a big brother state, which none of us would want to see, there is absolutely no way we can do anything other than to encourage parents to let us know if they intend to move or change schools or change homes.
She also revealed moves to combat possible problems resulting from the war in the Gulf.
For some weeks now, both I and the department have been working with the Ethnic Affairs Commission, various ethnic groups that we think might be directly involved if there was harassment, victimisation or threats, because the last thing any of us want is to see the Gulf War revisited through our children and in our classrooms and playgrounds.
When it comes to photo opportunities, politicians can't resist the dynamic hard hat look, and BHP's Rod and Bar division had plenty of hats to spare. The Premier said his visit was to highlight the achievements BHP had made in rationalising the steel industry over the past 2 years. He said it was an example that could be followed by the public sector.
It's a terrific example of what needs to happen throughout the Hunter and throughout Australia.
The Premier also took the opportunity to farewell BHP's Rod and Bar Products Division General Manager Rob Chenery, who announced his resignation yesterday. Mr Chenery won't say what his new job is, except that it's an executive post with an American manufacturing firm. Mr Chenery was pivotal to workplace restructuring programs which are about to be phased in over the next 2 years. He says the decision to leave wasn't easy.
It's been a very hard decision. I've been 29 years with the company. It's a lot of relationships are built in that time, a lot of investment in my time in the company, and it's been a great time, but finally, it was time to make a move.
Mr Greiner was obviously not pleased to see the state losing one of its captains of industry.
His loss means that a major agent for change, a major positive agent for change, is lost, and he'll also be a loss to the various industry boards around the Hunter where he's made a real contribution.
You have a fairly busy itinerary today. Are we to assume that you've hit the hustings?
No, you don't have to assume that at all. You can assume that the election won't be for at least half a year.
While the Premier's insistence that he's not about to call a snap election will go a long way to dampening speculation about the March date, there's no doubt that his reluctance to talk about a full term will give pundits plenty to ponder over the next 6 months. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Glossy brochures and high-profile politicians were testimony to the significance of the opening by Premier Nick Greiner, assisted by his Deputy Wal Murray and Health Minister Peter Collins. According to all three, the facility will now take its place at the top of the state health system, after a planning and construction program that spanned almost a decade, a fact that brought no apologies from Health Minister Collins.
It's a reminder to all of us that you can't build hospitals, especially quality hospitals like this, overnight.
The development of the John Hunter was not without its problems, the greatest of those the damage caused by the December '89 earthquake, costing $6.5 million to repair, a memory of which Mr Collins said he'll always carry with him.
I visited this hospital the day after the earthquake, and as evidence of the damage the earthquake had done, I took away a chunk of the hospital which sits in my office.
But the project came in 18 months ahead of schedule, an achievement Deputy Premier Wal Murray said belongs to the men and women who toiled to put it back on track.
It was a team effort
from all who is involved, from the heads of departments, designers, contractors, the people who worked here, the union movement and so on.
And this morning at last, the moment all those who had toiled had been waiting for.
It gives me a great deal of pleasure to declare the John Hunter Hospital, the hospital for the people of the Hunter, officially open.
The official party was taken on a whirlwind tour of the hospital, which accepted its first patient 2 weeks ago, delivered its first baby just yesterday, and will open its casualty department on March the 6th, and all were impressed with what they saw.
It's a world-class teaching hospital and it'll have world-class people working in it, and the two ingredients together will be just tremendous for the Hunter and indeed for the state.
But they admitted the real test is yet to come, a test Health Minister Collins admits will be accompanied by a period of adjustment for a health system that in the past has always looked to Sydney for the best in medical care.
I think what we want to try to do is change the referral patterns in the northern part of New South Wales so that doctors in the northern part of New South Wales refer their patients who require tertiary services, teaching hospital services, here to John Hunter rather than overfly Newcastle to go to Sydney.
Members of a committee formed to campaign for the continuation of the S-Bends bypass claim they were not told of Mr Carr's visit. But they and other residents turned up anyway to find Mr Carr was more concerned with talking to the media and posing for a photo session with ALP candidate for Swansea, Don Bowman.
I know your hands are tied, but give us some bit of a go.
Mr Carr said all he could do was to shame the Greiner government into completing the work, which suffered a funding cut last year, and to promise it would become a Carr government top priority if Labor was elected. Residents claim heavy trucks using the roundabout had damaged foundations of their homes, causing cracks to walls and ceilings, though they declined to show evidence of that damage. And they said temporary drainage work caused flooding in wet weather at high tide.
There's also the worry that the water lying around as it is will be causing a lot of illnesses such as glandular fever, all sorts of other fevers, viruses and even hepatitis.
But their concerns were cut short. Mr Carr said he did not like to stand out in the sun and he had a plane to catch. Party faithfuls, however, remained loyal to the end.
Similar bans have been tried by other councils and applied in part, but none have been as far-reaching. Under the bans to be applied from June, there will be no smoking in public halls throughout the community, including the City Hall function rooms. Tobacco advertisements will disappear from billboards on council-controlled land, but policing some aspects of the ruling could be difficult.
I'm unsure as to just how it will be policed and to what legal power council has, but we're exploring that now. I think the main thing is that it's really saying something that the general community appear to want.
The council will ask the state government to consider bans on properties it controls around the city. One of these would be the International Sports Centre, the arena for the Rugby League Winfield Cup competition.
I personally doubt that the state government will take that action, and I have no doubt that the Winfield Cup's in no danger at all.
The council expects opposition to the plan, but says the anti-smoking message will prevail.
And I believe the intent of this resolution is to start looking at that and the education of our young people by simply, for a start, denying the opportunity for advertising tobacco and related products to them.